Welcome to Traders Galaxy, and today we're going to look at some Bot War 3 stuff. Welcome all to another video from Traders Galaxy. This is a bit of a quick makeshift video on Sunday morning because I did actually film this video previously and just through stupidity ended up deleting it and deleting the master copy as well. So yeah, so I'm reshooting this. I know for a fact this one's not going to be as good because Murphy's Law and all that. But I thought this video is just about looking at the Kroar's Warband faction and what it's all about and how it fits with the wider Bot War universe, as well as looking a little bit at some of the rules changes for Bot War 3, particularly around how alt forms are used, and a little bit of the history about how Bot War has sort of flirted with alt forms for the past couple of editions, but how I think this one is a much smoother transition into how alt forms are used in the game. Okay, so we start off with Kroar's Warband. Now, Kroar's Warband came about because in the Deceiver sort of lore, there are sort of 7 lords that, I think it's 7. Yeah, seven lords called the 7 sins. And these sins are sort of like powerful deceivers. They're not really like they're sort of separate to the tyrant class, which is like the generals of the deceiver force. They're sort of more like the royalty class. So the rumor has it that the 7 sins each have an aspect of Galaxy himself embedded in them. And of course that aligns to the 7 sins of like normal culture. So Kroar is the sin of wrath. Now this is Kroar, the new Kroar model. So we've taken like quite a drastic departure from the normal style of Bot War for these, and I want to sort of continue that eventually through the Deceiver range. So people who know of the old Kroar model will easily be able to see that this is actually Kroar. Now, Kroar is actually a giant vulture, and you can actually see a bit of the vulture's head on the back of him there, and that's his like talons and stuff like that. So that's the origin alt form of Kroar. Kroar, yes. So Kroar, each of the 7 sins have their own little warband of followers that sort of align themselves with the actual sin that they represent. So obviously this is Kroar's Warband of Wrath, so the models that you'll see will all be related to sort of that, have that sort of same theme. Okay, so this is Kroar. He's pretty badass. He's been upgraded a little bit in his rules since the old version of Kroar, just because he's sort of out on his own now. So that's Kroar. And next we have Rage. So Rage is a new character. Rage is, however, a dissenter, which is sort of what all the air warriors are called in the Deceiver's force. So there's like loads and loads of air warriors, and that's sort of the main warriors of the Deceivers. So this is Rage. It's pretty cool. I quite like his tall wings there. This is Violence, and Violence again is a new character, new dissenter. So you notice as well, like we tried to like radically depart from the existing models. Let me just grab a model from the Golden Lions, which are in the same faction. And you notice the Golden Lions are quite blocky. Very 80s, very blocky. And that was a decision. In fact, we were steering away from the blockiness, and we've actually returned full force to the blockiness for the Golden Lions. But we wanted to do the complete opposite for the Deceiver faction in the set. So everything's like a curved surface, much more sharper angles and like lots of curves. And we also used metallics. So I think this is the only faction in the whole of Bot War that has used metallics on a large scale. That's once again Stu painted these from Klim Fandango Painting. He did a great job. And so we've used sort of metallics for these, which is another departure, but I really think that they form a great contrast for the two forces in the set. So that's Violence, and this is Anger. Now Anger is an existing character from Bot War 2nd edition, and he's had various iterations throughout. In Turbo, he didn't actually have a character as such, but you could make up Anger out of the Terrors of the Air box set. But this is the actual Anger now. You can see there he's starting to mutate with his larger power fist and horns and stuff there. So he has been killed a few times. So for those that don't know, in Bot War lore, all the actual bots are sort of like angelic beings that don't actually die, but the deceivers actually do get corrupted over time and start becoming more beast-like. So yeah, that's his power source there going into his little backpack thing. So beautiful models these are, beautiful. Probably some of the best robot models that we've done for details, actually. Okay, so this is Temper. Now, obviously, Temper has his sort of Magnavolt gun there. So, Magnavolt is a new special rule. Sorry if I'm shaking when I'm spinning this. Is a new special rule, which, if you damage, it can steal pink energy and convert it to red energy for your next power-up phase. So, that's Temper. Okay, so this is the first of the symbiotes in the box set. So this is Choler, spelled C-H-O-L-E-R. I think it's sort of like means sort of like angry or simmering anger. And so Choler is like the head of the Hellhounds. He's a three-headed sort of Cyberus type beast and a symbiote. So he can be hosted. Now in Bot War 3, hosts can have up to 6 symbiotes, so they're pretty deadly now, but a lot of points in one basket. So that's Choler, and then we have the Hellhound, which is your basic Hellhound. Now the Hellhounds you can take like these are a multi-take unit. By the way, these are all 3D prints, 3D prints of models. So they won't be as good as the actual resin cast miniatures, because even though these are 3D prints, they're only 3D printed on a medium, like commercial printer, when the actual resin ones are printed on a high level pro one, and then they're resin cast. So the resins will be better than these, but crisper. So yeah, Hellhounds can be taken multiple times. So you can have up to like as many as you want of Hellhounds, as long as you obviously distinguish them with your versus your cards versus your actual models, so you know which ones have which power, etc, etc. Okay, so that's really Kroar's Warband there, and so I want to now move on to just talk a little bit about the alt forms for Bot War and how they sort of work now. So I've actually got here a few, like there's a lot of Bot War models that people may not know that actually already have alt forms. So I just had to get this over here because I forgot to put that Stegosaurus out. So alt forms have been a thing in sort of Bot War for quite some time, and I was saying on the Facebook group, some maybe 2 days ago, that it's probably the thing that's been tested the most over the whole course of Bot War is how to get alt forms to work. And every time it's just been ridiculously clunky and annoying over time. So everyone thinks it's like a fantastic idea, etc., etc. But then when you start talking about, yeah, you have to buy 2 models for every model, and then some models only spend like a second on the board, and all this sort of stuff, it all becomes too hard. And it is quite a pain in the neck. So what I've tried to do in Bot War 3 is make that transition like quite smooth for people and relatively optional. So in the super abilities now, especially for super abilities like Stealth, Armored Might, and Artillery. Actually, I'll get the Artillery one that I've done here. Some will remember way back in Galactic Transition Issue 4 is when I was testing the alt form rules, which people wouldn't have known about. But I was testing with when I was doing the Mercs faction guide. So some of the super abilities, especially the ones that can be maintained, are actually really easy to do alt forms for. As soon as you decide to maintain the alt form, you simply swap the model out by putting the bot model on a card and using a new model that represents the alt form. Now, there is actually a huge amount of alt forms available. People just may not know it because they're not sold as such. So I've got here, this is Demolition for Mercs, and it's very obvious that his alt form is the Destroyer tank from Democracy. This is a metal one, so it's a little bit smaller. So I just mock that up for the playtesting and stuff like that. So it actually is quite cool when you go into artillery mode that you can just swap the model out for a model on the same size base that represents the model that it would change into. So that's been sort of played like that for quite some time. But adding to this, pretty much you can do the same thing with Stealth. Now, a few people would know this, and this base isn't stuck down here properly, but the Dumpster model is actually the alt form for a Stealth Mirror Warrior. So these two work with each other, and obviously we have the Tunneler and Crawlers, and pretty much all of the Coils, Atlantica, all have alt forms. Now, I have started, and we've got one coming out, and some people got this on exclusive a while back, but I've actually also started doing the Armored Might versions for Beast Lords. So this here is the Armored Might version of Stegoris. So you can actually swap out Armored Might. I will eventually do all of the Beast Lords, including Darkstone and Spinerock in as beasts. But yeah, I don't know exactly how long that will take. But I encourage people to convert up their own. Darkstone's really cheap at the moment, so it'd be quite easy to convert up your own version of those for for things like Armored Might, and yeah, do sort of fit in what you can. Now, one of the things that is not in the rule book, but is going to start to become more and more common, is that for the Kroar's Warband, there is, obviously everyone knows about upgrade cards. So upgrade cards now have become way more prevalent in things with the faction guides, where you can like just tweak your army for a couple of points and do different things for a couple of points. But one of the upgrades that is going to be much more prevalent in most forces moving forward is a upgrade called Take to the Skies. Rather than make it a actual super that's everybody has, I've decided to retain that sort of power and use it in the faction guides instead as an upgrade. So anyone with the air attack super ability can actually choose an upgrade that will be a new super ability, not replacing air attack, but it's in addition to air attack, which is called Take to the Skies. And it wasn't possible in previous editions because all of the all of the units or all of the models were sort of treated in a similar way, in the sense that they behaved similar, and only the stats really gave you an inkling of whether it was a vehicle or a bot or something like that. It's something I really didn't like in the rules. Probably the only thing I didn't like in the rules is how similar many of the units were, and that's changed in Bot War 3. So Bot War 3 now has, it works very similar to Broken Skies. If people have played Broken Skies, they know that there is different unit types in Broken Skies, and you can swap between unit types in Broken Skies in order to sort of change into a robot in the midair, or back to a jet or a helicopter or wherever. And so that sort of mechanic I tweaked a little bit and moved across to Bot War, because now Bot War has unit types. And so you have like sort of bots and monsters are a similar unit type. They behave pretty much the same. But then you have vehicles, infantry, and flyers, and dedicated flyers that all behave very differently to, or when I say behave differently, they still move, etc., but they have different rules. So for instance, a vehicle's not very good in combat, so it can't actually choose a close combat activation. So you can, it's worth being a bot, but then bots don't have as long a range as what vehicles do. So for a shooting game, maybe a vehicle is a better choice. So that's the sort of differences that the unit types or the unit classes get. And so now I can, because I have those unit classes established in the rules, I can now use upgrades to allow models or units to swap between different unit types. So for instance, you've got say Cayman here. His alt form is actually the Manta, as you can see. Now don't forget, the flyers in Bot War are 6mm scale and the bots are 10mm scale, which is like obviously the difference in size, because you don't want giant 10mm scale super flyers going all over the building, and I couldn't afford to make them anyway. So you've got here these two. So what you could do is take a Take to the Skies upgrade, which will increase Cayman's points value a little bit, but he then can become a dedicated flyer. So for instance, you pay the points and you swap the model out for a dedicated flyer. Now a dedicated flyer has pretty much completely different rules to a bot. So whilst you're a dedicated flyer, you're not a bot. And so you're following the rules now for dedicated flyers, and you can end that the Take to the Skies rule when you wish, and you go and swap back to becoming a bot. So it opens up some vulnerabilities, because dedicated flyers can be quite vulnerable to certain units. They're not as vulnerable as they used to be, but they can be become quite vulnerable. But that's part of the tactics of using the game. So for instance, like if we want to talk about artillery, now artillery using the alt form is not a rule as such, it's a hobby suggestion written underneath the super ability. So if you can't afford to buy extra models or anything, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is just put a counter on the base to show that they're in artillery mode or something. But if you would like to get that full experience, then if you get another model, then you can swap it out. And that's really why I've kept them as a hobby tip, that you don't have to go out and get extra stuff just to play Bot War. You can just use counters if you wish. But obviously I've found using my mercs that it's actually quite fun to swap out the model and have tanks rolling around and then turning back into bots, etc., etc. I just feel that the immersion into the game experience is much more fun. But that's me. Not everybody plays like that. But anyway, I was just saying that... what was I saying now? I was just saying that with the artillery mode, because it's not exactly a rule, it doesn't matter that you don't have it, but it's fun, and it is in the actual rule book to use artillery mode. So that's pretty much it. I probably got a little bit mixed up there at the end, so forgive me. I'm doing this all completely on the fly because I've just pretty much got no time today. I want to tidy up this workshop and finish off the collector's guide, which is not going to take very long at all, and then do a little bit more work on finishing the Golden Lions faction guide, which should be out very soon. So got a lot on, and I hope you enjoy this video. And I think the Bot War stuff for Bot War 3, the pre-orders all gone through and it's been successful, and all that stuff will be ordered probably Monday or Tuesday, which is in a day's time. So yeah, it's been great. It's been a great week, and hopefully you guys all get on and get some games of Turbo in at the moment. And I'll catch you guys later. Bye.